So what I'm doing today is examining their reasoning, okay? First off, it's DQ3, helping students practice and deepen new knowledge, but it doesn't have to necessarily be new knowledge. It can be knowledge that you kind of already covered, but also using graphic organizers within that. So I'm going to show you a quick video from Marzano.
This week's element 18, is examining errors in reasoning. The desired effect of element 18 is that students can examine and explain their errors in reasoning to deepen their knowledge. Why engage students in examining errors in reasoning? It forces to read for a purpose and become critical consumers of information. Students learn to back conclusions by analyzing resources. It strengthens these students' understanding of a concept or skill, and to encourage students with analyzing and evaluating faulty logic in themselves and others. How can I help students examine errors in reasoning? One way is to introduce them to common errors by discussing and providing examples of errors in thinking, such as faulty logic, attacks, weak references, and misinformation. Another way would be to generate activities that allow for more independence to examine and critique reasoning. Your name?
I'm Elizabeth Pack, and I teach at Lyman Elementary. This is my first year in kindergarten. So we're in DQ3, Deepening Knowledge, and it's really important that we focus on element 18, which would be analyzing errors and reasoning, because kids are making mistakes. It's just natural that as we subtract, they're going to make mistakes. So as a kindergarten teacher, I have to stop when I see it happening so that they understand why they're doing it the wrong way, how you do it the right way, and that way the right answers will be remembered. The difference is that the ones that are done on the fly, you cannot plan for, but you just have to stop. And I know that people say it uses up your time, but it's really valuable. There were other ones. I wanted them to realize that my picture was incorrect. I wanted them just to catch my errors, so they really know how to use the strategy. If they don't know how to use the strategy, they can't possibly try and pinpoint my mistake. Okay, so there are other types of mistakes. And I'll use language that tells the children there is a mistake. Let's say, I want you to find this is that error, this is that mistake. I might let in the loop because they're fine. But I want them to know that there is one, that there is an error, and I make mistakes just like you do.
Think, how many smileys more? How many more smileys and frownies? 3. I hear 3, I hear 4, I hear 5. Freeze, 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 freeze. I want Sydney to come up here, because she said 5. She may not have understood the question. Use my marker, and I want you, Sydney, to pair up smileys and frownies and tell me how many more smileys I have. You can draw them. Justin or someone who said it? Who said draw? Johnny said to draw. Now, who? Oh, so she was confused on the question. Thank you for fixing your mistakes. And I want you to think, is 6 minus 2 equal to 5? Don't yell it out, because you're going to tell your partner.
In kindergarten?
And you can also use your fingers. All right, when I say go, you're going to turn to your peanut butter partner. Peanut butters
This made me
are going to
hungry.
give the right answer, and jellies are going to say why. 7 minus 9 in the way, I'm sorry. 7 minus 9 equals 2. Whoa. Sydney's making a comment. She's confused. Eyes on Sydney. Freeze. Connor, I love it. I love it, Justin. I love blue. Johnny, eyes on Sydney. She's like, Mrs. Back. Go ahead. I don't know, everyone. Let's prove her right or wrong. Put up your fingers. No, don't even put up your fingers. Draw me a picture. Draw me a picture. Show me that 7 minus 9 is or isn't 2.
Okay, so, with this being said, there's different ways of doing it. Obviously, it's not gonna be that elementary and middle school level. So, to show you what I do in my classroom, I actually have this up, okay, where it's my EQ, my LQ, my LG, and then how am I doing today? So even if it is a bilingual student, an ESOL student, they can at least show me the numbers. So it's not always fingers like she was showing. I actually sometimes use popsicle sticks, okay? And they actually coordinate to the color of what's up there. And I try to do it like street signs. Obviously, there's not a blue when we drive, okay? So I had to come up with the blue one. So instead of showing 3, 2, 1, sometimes kids are like this, and you can't really tell where they're at. So what I do is just show me what color you're at, okay? Also what I do is at the beginning of each unit, I have what their scale should be, okay? What they need to know and learn within this unit. And at the very beginning, we go over each question and then we color coordinate it based on this model, okay? And then once we're about midway through, about say progress report time, depending on how much we have to cover in this unit, we do it again. And then by the end, see where they're at, okay? One example that I have from last year, which
This
is,
one, I didn't know who, oh, this is it. Oh, okay. Not my lady, that's it, she has no idea who I am. Yeah, but I'm.
there are some do's and don'ts that teachers do quite a bit. The don'ts are failing to identify and utilize the appropriate materials. You're not gonna give them the wrong materials that have nothing that correlates with the activity. Failing to connect related instructions to the strategies. Failing to provide the necessary instructions. I'm not gonna go to David here and say, here you go, get started. Okay, which sometimes we do that because we think they already have the background knowledge to be able to do that. And unfortunately, with dealing with the lower level students, even the advanced students, they don't have those capabilities of knowing how to process it. So we also, the biggest one, and I'm guilty of this too because we're trying to stay on target with our curriculum standards, is the time. Kids need time to process. And how long is the time that you need to process? Is it 2 minutes? Is it 5 minutes? Depending on what you're trying to analyze. And you don't want them to start having behavioral issues as well because of how much time you're allotted. Okay, but they do have to process. Some do's. Students can describe their errors, what they did wrong. why they did it wrong. Students can evaluate the efficiency of the process. Students can give an argument, which in history, it's very easy to do. Same thing for science. I think math is a little bit, it's black and white. You either have the problem right or you have it wrong.
No, but I have.
Except in Common Core.
Except in Common Core, if you can explain it in some weird way, then obviously it's correct. And then, language arts is always argumentative. And that's where a lot of PDs are focused on because it's pretty much the easiest one, I think, because it's either, it's an opinion, it's an argument, as long as you can back it up, like you said with Common Core, you can get the correct answer. A couple of the other ones are the artifacts. Where are they finding their evidence? Are they demonstrating it when they're filling out the graphic organizers? Are the students able to identify and support their perspective? Okay. And the last two are students are able to identify the support behind the multiple resources or perspectives. So you can have, it falls very well with social studies because we have a lot of DBQs. So they practice that. But what about the regular mainstream kids? The regular mainstream kids, we also have to have some sort of DBQ so they can use that and analyze their reasoning. And it's a little bit more difficult for them. Something that I did from last year, which is on your table, is this one here. It is a graphic organizer of the different taxes.
I plan to use this.
Okay.
Thanks for sending that.
Oh, you're
out.
welcome. But my thing was, this is what I did last year. It was all white. This was the regular student. She had a really hard time focusing and getting them mixed up. So what I did this year was I color coordinated them to help them out. Because I'm a visual learner and a lot of my students are too. So they're all color coordinated. And if I had to go to a step further, I could fill in certain ones and then they would have to fill in the other blocks. They could also do pairing.
And what do you mean they're color coordinated? What did you do? Oh,
Just,
the taxes,
Right.
one color and the acts were,
no, I just color coordinated each worksheet because if I give them all white worksheets, they're gonna get them confused.
oh, okay.
Okay, so I just color coordinated, no specific colors, there's no rhyme or reason to that part, just so that they can put it into their notebook. And it's an interactive notebook. And by the time they get to the gold, they do have to reason. So their bottom part here is they had to write a letter to King George. And in the letter of King George, they had to explain at least 3 acts or 3 taxes within it. So it is showing that they understand their reasoning behind why we have all these taxes now.
Did you have them assume one position, like a loyalist or a patriot, or
Nope.
it was up to the kid?
It was up to the kids this time. Now, once we get a little bit, right, or neutral, like they didn't carry their way, and that's where they weren't understanding. I knew that they weren't understanding, it wasn't a big deal. So, what I did was, I'm gonna come over here, and I had them, because they've all been 5 years old, they've all been 8 years old, okay? In some way, they've been punished, probably. One way would be the purpose. I kind of organized it just like the graphic organizer, the purpose from the reaction. And if their toys are taken away, and it's just not one toy, say it's their favorite toy, what would be the reaction? So some of them would tell me that they would cry, scream, have a tantrum, and some didn't know what a tantrum was. So of course, then I acted it out. And I was screaming and flailing my arms around, and they're like, what is wrong with this lady? But they understood.
And then they internalized what the word, the meaning of that word.
Exactly. And so with that, what does the parent do? So the parent went from in timeout. And then it would force them to go back to each level of the reaction would cause them to be possibly spanked, whipped, belted. I told them I got the stitches, or the switch. They're like, what are switches? I'm like, well, I had to go and get a branch off my tree, and then I thought I was being smart by throwing it away and breaking it, and then you can imagine how much more trouble I was in. So the end result was a revolution. Because some of my kids were even telling me that they would slap their parents back at 5 years old.
And some do.
And some do. So, but they got the concept, they could take that correlation between this and what was happening with the acts and taxes. Okay? Another example that I have is, I always do something like fun, even though sometimes they don't think it's fun, is classified information. Okay? I had 4 different types of folders, and in the classified information, each student had a gold sheet, and in their gold sheet was their background knowledge. And they had to go around the classroom and figure out 4 different types of theories. So they had the background knowledge, and then once they went to a theory, so theory 1 was, I believe, the diseases. So I also kind of color coordinated it that way. Diseases to me, green. Okay? And with the diseases, they also had questions that went with the document. So they had to answer it.
And I'm confused. All of this was in the packet, or there were different, you had
There
like
was
centers?
different centers, yes. And each center, they had so much time to go to this center and work, about 10 minutes. So much time in this center, and they would work, and then they would move around.
So you did this as a group or individual?
As a group.
As a group.
As a group, because at the end, they have to compile an official report. And they actually really liked this because they could come up with their own agent name. And some of them were like Black Hawk. And if you look at some of these, they even learned how to mark the text up. Okay? So some of them are marked, some of them aren't marked. Okay? So that's also another reading skill that is involved in that. So this,
I knew she did. I looked at it. How long did you take to work on this?
2 days.
2 days?
2 days. Yeah, 2 days. That rigor has
Something
to
really
be.
good, even though they're past now.
Yeah,
For
I
me,
do.
I'm thinking your Christmas, for those last few days to try to keep them engaged and off the ball.
Absolutely, and that's what I was doing right before Halloween. So I saved this for Halloween just because even though we had passed it in our curriculum, I wanted it to relate to the Halloween theme and stuff like that. So this was their supporting of all the questioning, okay? Let's see what else. I have, we need another video to show you.
I still haven't recovered from that math lesson in the kindergarten classroom in the last one. No wonder those kids.
This one here, if you do go to the Canvas website, I have the number up there. It's 38428, and you can get all the resources from Canvas. I have graphic organizers, which are here, which if you are a textile person, I personally like them handheld. I'm not always electronic because I'll just put it into a folder and never see it again. It has all the information that I've gone over today. I have 2 videos to show you. One is more of a science video, okay? I tried hitting all the subject areas just because everybody's different and everybody does things differently. I mean, you're gonna see something completely different from math versus history versus science, okay? So here's this.
When we make claims, what do we need to follow those claims with?
With evidence from the picture or text and reasoning.
CER, claim, evidence, reasoning. This is making a claim, finding the evidence, the reasoning. If they have that understanding, then they're able to construct very well substantiated arguments.
Which one of these do you think is most scientific? So your claim is your answer to this question.
I think the most scientific painting is the first
row, third column? Because you could easily tell what the type of animal is.
In a CER format of discussion, students make a claim, their opinion or observation, then they point out the exact details, something that's directed in the text, in the picture, or in the book, that are evidence for their claim.
I also think that image is the most scientific. That's the one that has like the most insects or other like more scientific properties.
Typically, they were able to make a claim, give some evidence, but the reasoning is where a lot of them struggle. The reasoning is how logically does this evidence actually support my claim? It's taken a lot of push them to say, okay, how do these details specifically support your claim? They're really working on that reasoning component.
So remember, your evidence has to come directly from the artwork. But wait a minute, because you need to think about your reasoning. That's going to take a minute to ponder. Why does this claim? Why should somebody agree with
Conversation, hearing other students, they are becoming much more cognizant, but it's taken a lot of practice.
I think it is scientific because maybe it was a piece of paper from a journal and it was ripped out. I can say that because it has writing on it.
Making a claim, giving evidence, and then providing reasoning, getting all together, the trifecta of argument has really been a challenge for them, but they are becoming much more confident at taking their positions and making their case for their opinions.
So this is something that you have to work on. It doesn't happen overnight. Like I said, you can't just give an advanced class or even a gifted class, here's the worksheet, go for it. You have to have some kind of modeling. That's why I have our teacher responsibility, student responsibility. You model it, you show what you're expected. You do something like this, if they're not understanding it, go back, revise it, and then, depending, you grade them on what you're wanting them to know, okay? Just to recap, I have a small, quick video, and we will be done. How long does it work?
If we were told we had to write about the images we just saw, we might want to say something like, giving and receiving gifts is a great way to make people know you care about them. But when we think about claims, what could a gift have to do with writing a claim? If we make a claim, we have to support it. We have to know.
That's just what's Trainwreck, you know, it's the
Yeah.
funniest movie of the
I haven't
year.
seen that one yet.
I went to see it, it was the funniest
No.
movie of the year.
Great way to make people know you care about them. But when we think about claims, what could a gift have to do with writing?
No. While you're trying to get that to buffer, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna chime in, talking about having supporting evidence, you know, I do the guided reading activities.
Yes, that would work.
And it's so funny with them, gifted and regular, when I'm asking them these questions and asking them to find the evidence in the text.
Right.
And both levels, they'll say, when I say that, well, that's not right. Well, it was in the book. And I'm like, yes, there's a lot of stuff in that book.
Right.
You're absolutely correct.
Right.
However, that isn't stuff, the textual evidence to answer this question.
Correct.
And I try to, and I have to work gifted as well, work them through that. Most of the time you got, and I love when they tell me it's not there, the answer's not there. I'm like, I wrote all these questions. The answer's there. And I'm like, you guys should know by now that if you'll read the question, I've given you some clues in the
Right.
question as well, because they don't want to do that.
And sometimes it's them wanting to skim. Just skim
Exactly.
and getting the answer. They're not realizing you have to read it fully to be able to find the specific evidence. Like, just
Mhm.
tell me where in this sentence it says this. That's what you're looking for. And that's what, you're right, they don't want to do
And
that.
it's both levels.
Yeah,
You know,
they have to, yeah.
They, especially the gifted, I find skim more so, because they just want to get it done.
Get it done over with.
We're so smart, we can get it done.
Right,
Well, you're not that smart.
yep.
Let's
Claim.
read
You
it.
gotta go back.
We know that if you make a
And
claim,
you have to
you have
make
to
a
support
complaint,
it.
a claim and support it.
And we also know that reasoning helps it all make sense. But this whole idea of claim, support, and reasoning, what could that have to do with gift? For teachers love those things. Gift is the metaphor for, a gift is a metaphor for claim, support, and reasoning? Well, let's say someone makes you happy. Just completely so happy. Kind of, I want to give you a gift that's how I am kind of happy. And we know that giving a gift's a big decision. You don't start with the box. You don't start with the bug. You start with the important thing, the gift itself. And the gift needs to matter. Now, oh, you would never choose a terrible gift. I mean, not on purpose anyway. You want to choose the right gift for the right person. This gift would not be good for this person. It could be a good fit for her, however. And it might be a good fit for this person. Maybe much this gift, which might be a better fit for this audience. Once you know you have the right gift for the right person, you need to decide how much support that gift needs. Some gifts need a bit of support, some bubble wrap. Other gifts, though, need lots of support, even more.
Even more bubble wrap.
To fit the person receiving. The right support for
So
and that's something that really exists. That probably needs lots of support. If it's breakable, and then, once your package is properly supported, it can be finished off with a ribbon.
Sorry, guys.
That is claim, support, and reasoning. That has something to do with this whole idea of a gift. Let's say our claim is, that is gift. The claim is our gift, that good writing is important. Then we ask, well, how so, or why? And that becomes part, oh, math. important is our claim, our gift. How so? That's the structure that's a, and so we can expand that. Good writing lets people express ideas. The better. Maybe we want to say it can reach me across the.
It's okay, we got edges. So basically, you have, the gift goes into the surrounding
What's that
box,
sturdy
and
box?
the ribbon is the
Then
reasoning.
we can use
Okay.
reasoning to tie it all together.
Great,
The reasoning is
thank you.
a bow, and that ties our ideas together. Sometimes it's simple, and sometimes it's more complex. So we might want to say, good, right, important. Well, maybe we want to say that historically, it's proven that good communication matters. And this reasoning allows, grounded and supported by the structure of our argument, to be presented to an audience and heard. And that's a gift anyone would be happy to receive.
Okay,
Change.
so after that, in and out, that's the end of my presentation. I have sticky notes at your desk or at your table. I would just like you to answer, what does reasoning look like in your classroom, or maybe even in admin? What does it look like?
Do you have a pen?
She's
Teacher,
not
I'm
prepared.
I'm not prepared. I brought my computer this time.
Fail.
Didn't even need that, so. And what was the question?
What does it look
I'm
like?
such a middle school
It's
child.
We've been teaching too long. And it's Friday. What does it look like in your classroom? Okay, and there are some good graphic organizers over there, especially the light blue one is good for justifying your reasoning. Have you done the Boston West Korea? No, I'm gonna be doing